Happy Easter, everybody! I know not everybody celebrates Easter, but if you do, I just would like to wish you a very, very happy one. And hopefully, if you are celebrating, you'll get to celebrate with your family or your friends, or however you choose to celebrate. I hope you are able to do so today. And yeah, I just was hoping to wish you a happy holiday, and I guess let's go ahead and get into today's class. Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. Today's class is going to be on the next set of Gideon the Ninth chapters 11 through 15. But before we go ahead and jump into today's class, let's go ahead and go over our trivia question from last week. Thank you so much, as always, to everybody who participated in the trivia question. The correct answer was either a satyr or a faun. That was what the picture was depicting. Either answer was correct, and I had some people who even guessed both answers. So either way, you were correct. And the correct participants were Paul, Dan, Brendan, Chrissy, and Noobmaster69. I like your name there. So if you want to go ahead and look at the next question, that is going to be up on the website, or if you'd like to join us with the trivia question, you're welcome to check it out there. It's going to be on the right hand side if you scroll down just a little bit on desktop. If you're on mobile, you'll probably have to scroll pretty much all the way down to the bottom in order to find the question, but it is there and you're welcome to answer and see if you are correct or not. Alright, let's go ahead and jump into today's class, and we'll start with our recap as always. So, with this set of chapters, we start off with Gideon continuing to kind of explore the first area that she's just wandering around aimlessly, looking around the place. Spends a couple days doing that, but then she ends up being invited to a kind of training dueling session with some of the other Cavaliers. And so they're sparring and practicing together, and she ends up fighting a couple of the Cavaliers. She spars against two of them and essentially wins both rounds. One she wins, actually wins. The other one she wins kind of on a technicality, which makes her not really anybody's favorite there, but she was classified as the better fighter of the two. And another week goes by or so of just sparring, her training, her kind of exploring, doing her own thing, when she eventually realizes that there has been a full day without Harrow coming back to the room and sleeping. So she hasn't really been seeing Harrow, but she at least can tell that Harrow has been back to the room, and at this point she sees that Harrow has not been back. So she decides to, Gideon decides to look around and see if she can find her, because she believes that there's some reason that would make it so Harrow did not come back. So she's looking around, spends most of the day looking, wandering around, until finally she finds Harrow with the help of the 6th Cavalier and Necromancer. So she runs into them and she finds out that Harrow is behind this locked door, and they unlock the door for her so she can go ahead and collect Harrow. She brings Harrow back to the room, nurses her back to health, and starts talking to her about what she's been doing and why she was in the state that she was in the library. Harrow talks to her, lets her know what's happening, what she thinks the test is, what she's been working on, and Gideon convinces her to let her help. Gideon makes it so Harrow will allow her to come with Harrow on her future endeavors, because she believes that she's obviously not able to do it by herself, since she wiped herself out so much so that she couldn't even return to her room. So she's saying, I think it's best if I come along with you. Harrow doesn't want this at first, but she convinces her to let her come. So both of them head out to the area that Harrow was at before, the test that she's trying to figure out. That has to do with the imaging room and the response room. And she finds out through Gideon that there is some kind of monster or skeleton that's resurrected and kills the skeletons that Harrow sends out there. So Gideon ends up fighting in place of the skeletons for the attacking skeleton that's raised. And Harrow ends up trying to connect her eyesight to Gideon, which apparently is not very easy to do, and Harrow keeps saying that her feelings and her spirit gets in the way, which freaks Gideon out at first, understandably. But they end up taking a break because Harrow cannot continue, even though she's figured out what she needs to do for passing whatever test this is, and they end up taking a break for them to be invited to the fifth, believe it's the fifth house, Magnus and Abigail's 11th wedding anniversary. And there's a big dinner. They invited everybody, and it seems that everybody came to the dinner. Harrow ends up leaving at the very end of our last chapter, all fiery, and Gideon follows her out and finds out that Harrow believes that now there are 2 people closing in on her, so she needs to hurry up and pass the test in order to stay ahead. So now they are heading back down to the test because Harrow does not want to be passed up. And that is where we left the end of chapter 15. I hope that you guys are enjoying the story so far. I am. As I said before, this is my first time reading it, so I am definitely intrigued, definitely enjoying it, definitely want to move forward and see what continues to happen. I do find that sometimes this story is a lot to follow, and I have to check back with, like, whose house is this? What house is this? So I have to go back and check out that chart. I don't know if you guys are using that chart or not, or if you're having much easier time following who's who. But other than that, I find it very fun, very engaging, a lot of mystery, and I'm really enjoying the story. So I hope you guys are as well. And I've got a couple of big things to talk about, things that I feel like are really very noticeable in this set of chapters. And the first thing that really stood out to me all the way back from the very first chapter of this section, chapter 11, is Gideon's relationship with Harrow. We've talked a lot about Harrow and Gideon, since they are our 2 main characters, quite a bit in the last couple of videos. But a lot of times, we're looking at Harrow as how much Gideon hates Harrow, and how much Harrow seems to hate or antagonize Gideon. However, in this set of chapters, I feel like we see a different perspective from Gideon without Gideon even realizing that she has this perspective in many ways. And that is the relationship the 2 of them have and how they both feel about it. So, Harrow is terrible to Gideon. We've established that. Harrow is absolutely horrible to Gideon. Just the absolute worst person imaginable to Gideon. Almost killing her several times, turning off the heat that almost kills her, fighting her when she's trying to escape, and just doing really rotten stuff to her, always being mean, always carrying her around. Throughout the whole time that she's trying to escape the Ninth, Harrow is always there pulling her back and punishing her for trying to escape, things like that. So we see a lot of instances where Harrow is indeed a terrible person to Gideon. And we know that Gideon is constantly thinking about how much she hates Harrow. 100% thoughts of hatred and wanting to never see her ever, ever, ever again, which is understandable with how Harrow treats her. Constantly all the sarcastic jokes that she makes, constantly all the things that she says, everything is pointing to the fact that she truly hates Harrow. Except, now we see some instances where this doesn't seem, at least for Gideon's side, to line up the way that she is constantly saying that she hates and despises Harrow. And rightfully so, with a lot of the ways that she's treated. But we see that Gideon actually cares about what Harrow thinks of her. Gideon wants to leave. She wants to never go back to the Ninth again, but she wants Harrow to acknowledge that Gideon is worth something. She wants her to find out that, like, she was actually a capable fighter and was actually good at something, and to acknowledge that, to say that she was worth something in the end. And that is a thought that, though she might not want it, is in her brain. Something that she's wanted for a while is to have some form of acknowledgement of worth from Harrow. Which, if you hate this person and such, why is it so strong of a need to feel acknowledged? And I do get that it's probably because Harrow has never acknowledged her in anything and has always put her down. But if she really didn't care about Harrow at all, I don't think she would feel quite so strongly of wanting some kind of acknowledgement for something that Gideon herself feels that she's good at, which is her fighting and her swordsmanship. So I do think that that is definitely something that's in their relationship that's binding them together a little bit, is this want of acknowledgement. And not only does she care about what Harrow thinks of her and wants this acknowledgement, she notices right away that Harrow has not been back. It's not that it's been a couple of days and she's like, oh, nothing's changed. She notices the day that she doesn't come back that nothing has changed. It's not like, she spent a week and then finally realized, like, oh, hey, it looks like there's been a couple days where nothing has changed. Maybe I should go look for her. She notices the next morning everything is the exact same. The rumples in the bed is the same. The laundry basket is the exact same. Nothing has been touched for one night. And Gideon's already like, oop, Harrow hasn't come back, and there's a reason for that. To me, that's a very high level of attention, a very high level of caring and knowing about somebody, to acknowledge that, hey, they haven't come back, and not only that, but it means something. Not only that, but it means something for Harrow to not have come back, and that is an abnormality. So to me, it's like, okay, you hate her, you don't like her, and yet you know quite a bit about who she is, enough to be concerned about why she didn't come back, and you pay attention enough to her things that you can tell nothing has been messed with or anything like that. And not only that, you went and looked at her things to see if she had been back or not. So that's another factor of Gideon paying attention to Harrow, that you would think, why are you paying that much attention to Harrow if she's that terrible? You should be happy and thankful that she's not around. And not only that, she keeps telling herself, like, oh, I could be thankful that she's dead. Hopefully she's dead somewhere if I find her. But then it's like, why are you going to go look for her in the first place if you just don't want her to be around? Because then after that, she decides, I'm going to look for her, and she spends the entire day looking for Harrow. So yes, there is a point where after she's looked so much that she's thinking she's going to give up. But then she's like, well, maybe I'll look a little longer. And then she delves deeper and deeper. And that's how she ends up finding Harrow. And in the first place is that she ends up deciding to keep looking and spends her whole day looking for her, ends up finding her. Not only that, but seems very concerned about getting to her when she runs into the 6th house adept and Cavalier. She talks to them, which she's not supposed to do, to ask them to open the hatch in order to get to Harrow. And then she herself carries Harrow out and nurses her back to health. Takes her back to the room and takes care of her. Gets her water, sits by her, is going to try and see if she can help her in any way, shape, or form, until Harrow tells her that if she touches her again, she's going to kill her. But she's actively taking care of her and trying to help her out. And then not only that, she then offers to take care of her by going with her on her test because she believes that it's too dangerous for her to be by herself anymore. And to me, it's like, what kind of dynamic of a relationship do you have to offer all of these things, even though, and to do all of these things, even though you say that you hate her? So my question is, does Gideon actually hate Harrow as much as she thinks she does? Or is maybe Gideon just too nice for her own good and is willing to help her anyway? It really seems interesting that for somebody who's treated so poorly by somebody, for her to take care of her and to care for her so much that she's willing to go to so many lengths to understand the person and to search for the person and to then take care of that person and offer assistance. It's hard to say on Harrow's perspective of Gideon. We don't really see that since we are following Gideon and are in tune more with Gideon and her perspective. But we do also know that Harrow has been a little less evil and reproachful to Gideon, even though she's not nice, but she's not overly mean. And even Gideon has made that comment that she notices she's not totally her usual level of meanness toward her. So the question, I guess, is to see how things are actually. So we see how Gideon thinks that she feels, and we understand how Harrow treats her. But now we're starting to see really how Gideon is, and possibly their true dynamic in their relationship. So I don't know if this is going to develop. I don't know if this will bring them closer. I don't know if Gideon is just a nice person. But I find it very, very interesting that Gideon is so helpful toward Harrow if in fact she doesn't like her at all and wants to be away from her and never wants to see her again and could happily see her dead. That doesn't seem like the actions of somebody who would not care less if somebody survived or not. I'd have loved to hear your idea and your perspective of this. Please let me know down below. I would love to know how you feel about the relationship between Gideon and Harrow and what you think the dynamic is, or why you think possibly Gideon would go to such lengths to protect Harrow when she hates her so much. Let me know. I'd love to hear. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about Harrow. So we talked a little bit about Gideon's relationship with Harrow, but now I think in this section we do learn a little bit more about Harrow, or get at least some a little bit more dynamic to her, because now she has come back into the story a bit more and we are spending a little bit more time with her, so we get a little bit more of a sense of who she is, especially with her going through these trials or whatever testing this is to become a lictor. So Harrow is, we see especially in this section, is especially exceptionally smart. She is like above average smart. And the fact that she arrived at the first house and pretty much immediately figures out what she is supposed to do. And even though we don't know anything, Gideon doesn't recognize anything, and we don't really see or explain like, hey, Gideon or Harrow is doing these certain things and is off somewhere without Gideon in that first day, and yet she already counts 200 doors. And it's like, okay, Gideon was with Harrow the whole time. When did she have time to count all these doors or find all these doors? So not only did she immediately understand what they were supposed to do without any direction, barely being there, she makes a connection of, hey, I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and counts 200 doors without really seeing any time that she explored the place, and has already made vast improvements of like, hey, this is where I need to go, this is what I'm doing, and I'm ahead of everybody else. And that's not only did she count these doors, but she also is keeping an eye on everybody else. Now, this is not necessarily a surprise that she is this smart. I mean, she obviously has shown previously that she is smart and that she is cunning and that she has more to her than meets the eye. But it's just like another like blow home of like, wow, this is exactly how smart she is. Like, she does not need any direction. She already knows what she's supposed to do and where she's supposed to go, and is trying to figure out these mass trials that she has to go through to become a lictor. She is extremely competitive. Again, this is not a surprise, but it is shown in a blown up capacity in these chapters in the fact that she refuses to be second. So technically there are, I believe it is 8 lector positions left, or total that they can become. I believe it's 8. So even though there's so many spots available, in order for Harrow to become a lector, and it doesn't really matter whether you're first, second, third, or fourth, as long as you're in the amount of spots that are open, you become a lector. But she refuses to be second. Refuses. It doesn't seem that there is any special treatment for somebody who becomes a lector before somebody else or passes these trials before somebody else, but she does not want anybody else to pass her, and she is obsessed with it. She refuses to take a break because she doesn't want the 6th, who she feels is very close to her, to pass her up and to discover things before her. She notices at the party that Abigail is asking about something that could possibly be passing her up, and so then she is storming out saying, okay, break is over, no one is getting there before me. Refuses. So she is extremely, extremely competitive. And so even though, yes, it does make sense that you would want to be one of the top runners because you want to make sure you get a spot, but to feel that if anybody else gets there before you, that is just unacceptable, is just a very extreme level of competitivity that we don't really know if the other adepts feel that way, or if they are trying to catch up to her per se, or even watching how far she is going, but she is definitely watching everybody else and refuses to be behind anybody. So very, very competitive. Appearance is still something that is very important to her. She must always appear perfect, always appear like she is the absolute epitome of the 9th house, which I'm not sure exactly what the 9th house is supposed to be like, other than depressing and black, and we get the sense that there is no fun there. Just as Magnus commented kind of on the outfit that she wore, which apparently is something very 9th, but is not anything else, or any other houses apparently are quite that way. So appearance is of the utmost importance to Harrow, and being looked at as a proper 9th person is very, very important to her. And that Gideon looks like a proper 9th Cavalier, that's especially important. She is a little bit softer in this section toward Gideon, and I don't know if that's just because she is so worn out, if she's so focused on her trials, if it's because Gideon's actually trying to be helpful to her and is actually, doing something that she likes. It's tough to say exactly why she is so much softer toward her. We're going to see if that continues going on, but maybe again that goes back to the relationship thing, where there's more to the relationship than we have yet been told about. We're going to have to find out on that one. We do also see that her necromancy has improved. Gideon has noticed that her skeletons are almost as refined and top-notch as the 1st house. So obviously whatever she's been doing in the last couple of weeks, or however long they've been at the 1st, that she has definitely improved, and that she is getting stronger. And even with that cocoon thing that she made, they were impressed by that cocoon that she had surrounded herself in. We're not exactly sure what it was doing, other than possibly making sure she didn't die in the cold. Because they did say it was very, very cold down there, but we don't totally know exactly what that cocoon did, but it was very, very impressive. We do know that based on the comments that were made about it. And she's still very self-absorbed. So we still have some similarities between what we've learned about her and how she still acts. She's very much self-absorbed. Doesn't really care about anybody or anything else. All she wants is her goals and to be the best. So still not, somebody who's overly cuddly and somebody that you think could be your best friend for sure. But definitely see some more insights on her. We're building her character. We're seeing who she is and possibly where she is leading us and Harrow, or us and Gideon along with her. So let me know what you think of Harrow down below. I'd really love to know how you feel about her, what you think about her, if you like her, if you don't like her, whatever you feel. I would love to have a discussion with you about her. Alright, now let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the Cavaliers, because we do learn more about Gideon's fellow Cavaliers, because she does some training with them. She's talked to some of them. Well, they've really talked at her or around her, and she's just there to witness that. So we just start to learn a little bit more about them. We have a little more interaction with them, especially as we interact a little bit more with the adepts as well. But I feel like at this point we really see a bit more about certain Cavaliers, since Gideon is interacting more with them than she is the adepts. So first, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Gideon in the act of her being a Cavalier. We really see Gideon's fighting skills at this in these set of chapters. We haven't seen her, well, we've seen her kind of fight, but we haven't really seen her in her element fighting somebody that she doesn't know. We did see that fight for Harrow, and obviously they talked about the training sessions that she was going through, but we haven't really seen her truly try and fight somebody. But we see it in this section, and we see that she is actually very calculated and a very focused person when it comes to fighting. She instantly calculated who would win by the beginning of the fight, and was very focused and very able to just get into the fight and just move through it. Knew exactly what she was supposed to do and how she was supposed to do it. Doesn't mean she could always, be perfect and change her luck, especially in her second fight. She was always on the defensive and could not change it to being on the offensive. But she definitely knew what was happening, assessed the situation, and acted accordingly. Very focused, very calculated, very unique. Not what I expected of Gideon. I expected Gideon, at this point from what I've seen from her, to just kind of dive in, but instead she took a moment, calmed herself, breathed, and mentally worked herself through it, and started both fights very, very calculated, very much with a picture in her mind of how it was going to go. So I think that's very, very interesting and makes her a little bit scary, to be honest. I think Gideon could be very scary if she truly wanted to be. If she truly was fighting for her life, I think things would be anybody would be very hard pressed to take Gideon down. Obviously very much in her element with fighting. It's very apparent, especially in this, that fighting is what she is good at. And that she is more of a real life fighter than a dueler, but that's not unexpected. That is based on Gideon's personality and what we've seen of her so far. It does make sense that she would be more of a brawler, more of a I will take you down however I can to win kind of person than a hey, let's do a fencing tournament type fighter. So definitely very much seems like her style to be more of a I fight to win than I fight for the rules kind of person. But then we also know about Magnus, and he is definitely the friendliest Cavalier that we've got going on here. So he's very, very friendly, especially with Gideon, despite everyone being very much against the Ninth and very anti-Ninth in general. He's very nice to Gideon. He always seems very happy to see her, very communicative with her, even though she can't talk back to him. He's very much tries to interact with her and tries to get her involved. Was very happy to fight her, though he was very surprised that he lost in only 3 moves. And I think that that's very interesting, that Gideon beats him quite so quickly. I don't know if that's what we've seen, all of what Magnus has to offer. I don't think he expected her to beat him in 3 moves, but it's hard then to judge if that's all that Magnus has to offer. If it's just Gideon is that much better than him, or if maybe it was kind of a ploy to not show how strong he is. I can't quite tell with Magnus. He's so friendly. It seems like that would be like, oh yeah, Gideon just wiped him out because that's the fighting style. She just beat his fighting style that easily. Not saying that he's bad, but just that Gideon against him is a very good fighter, very good person to counteract his fighting style. Or maybe he is so friendly and it's throwing us off and he might have something more to offer that we don't yet know about. We'll have to find out. And then we've got Nabarius from the Third. I think that's how you say it, Nabarius. And he's a very good fighter. Overwhelms Gideon in that duel. The way he has his fighting style is very hard for Gideon with her Cavalier style to beat him. She does wish that she had her double-handed sword, and that she would then be able to take him down much more swiftly. But at least for the Cavalier style, that is not Gideon's most preferred style. He is definitely much more of a much more able to do things with that mode of fighting that Gideon is not as adept with fighting against. So his fighting style overwhelms her fighting style, but they do make that comment that she is a better fighter, which I think is very interesting, is that he's all about the rules of the duel and she's much more of a I'm gonna win. So there is that different dynamic. Sorry if you hear the dogs barking. And next we have Protesilas? I don't know how to say his name, I'm so sorry. Protesilaus. Protesilas? I would love to know how you think I should pronounce that name down below, because it's kind of a hard one for me. I'm somebody who usually likes to pronounce things the way they're spelled, even if that's not always the way they're supposed to be said. But I'm not totally sure if that would be correct to say that. Protesilas? Something like that. Dulcinea's Cavalier. But we see a lot of Dulcinea and not quite a lot of her Cavalier, which I think is very interesting. She's constantly sending him away and not wanting him to be around her. I'd much rather have Gideon around her instead. So we don't really know tons about him, other than that usually when we see him he looks very grumpy and doesn't want anyone near her, near Dulcinea. But in this one we really do see that he is very much not around Dulcinea. She's very much sending him away. So we don't really understand what the relationship between Dulcinea and her Cavalier is, or what role he's going to have to play at this point. We definitely don't know that much about him, and that is very apparent in this set of chapters, and the fact that we really don't see him like at all. And last but not least, we have Camilla, that we really see have a little bit more interaction with in this section. She's very jumpy and attacks Gideon right away. She's very much attack first and protect her adept and ask questions later, which is what happened when Gideon showed up in the stairwell and, is looking like a dark specter in the stairwell, and she immediately jumps and attacks her. Which, Gideon was also kind of being ominous in the stairway. Didn't say anything, was just standing there listening to them. So, can't totally blame Camilla, but she definitely seems the closest with her adept. So, Camilla and her adept seem very, very, very close. They actually have a connection. They talk to each other. Even give Gideon the advice by saying, hey, you need to work with your adept. I don't know what game you're playing by being separate and not have anything to do with each other, but you really should start working together because that is going to be very important. So, very much seem like they're a team and that they're very close. And so we don't, we haven't seen tons about each of these characters. We don't know a whole lot about them, but we're slowly building pieces and seeing little hints and things, and we're filling in the puzzle pieces or the little blocks to start making our picture of who these people are. And I felt like those were the most prominent Cavaliers in this section. So let me know if you feel like I missed anything, or if there was any other characters that you think I should have talked about that really stood out to you in this section of chapters. I would love, love, love to have a discussion with you as always. And now let's wrap up with the nitty gritty, last but not least as always. So I have 3 main things that I think we should keep in mind as we continue moving forward with the novel. Things that really stood out to me that I think, are questions that we don't have answers for, or things that I feel like might be important later on. And the first is that Harrow was really nervous for that dinner they got invited to. So at first she didn't even want to go, but without too much trouble, Gideon convinces her to go. And Gideon notices that she's very, very nervous to go to this, and we don't know exactly why. Obviously, probably not tons of fancy dinners or political-based dinners happening on the 9th, so maybe it is just the fact that this is her first, dinner and wanting to be, the perfect part of the 9th. I'm not sure. That doesn't seem like something that would throw Harrow off, though. That seems like she would be in her element and be like, yes, I'm going to handle this perfectly. So I'm not really convinced that was why she was nervous about the dinner, but it could possibly be. But I think that that's a note to keep in mind, that that was something that made Harrow nervous, and either to find out why or possibly understand more about her character. We're going to find out if we see anything more about that. Next is that Dulcinea always seems to be there. She's just always there, always around Gideon, always wanting to know about Gideon. It's more than just a coincidence now. I feel like now she's just putting herself in her way. I mean, even at this dinner, somehow Gideon ends up being seated across from Dulcinea. Always. And she talks to Dulcinea a little bit. Well, again, Dulcinea talks at her. At this dinner party, before Harrow runs out, she's talking to Dulcinea. So how is it that she just always seems to be around Dulcinea? And what is Dulcinea's game in all of this? We don't really know. She's still kind of a mystery card happening right now. So let's keep in mind that she spends all this time, even with Dulcinea just spending on her own on the deck reading her romance books, Gideon always ends up during that time talking to her, being around her. At this party, Harrow gets sat at the other end of the table and she's across from Dulcinea. She just always seems to be there at the right time. I think that's very, very interesting. It seems like it could be very important moving forward. And then Palamedes was very impressed with Harrow's protective cocoon. So that is the adept for the 6th. He is very impressed with that cocoon when they find her in it, and is poking at it, and is very much thinking that is something remarkable that she has done. So I don't know why it's so special. We don't really go into enough detail to understand why exactly that is so impressive, but he is very impressed with it. And obviously, according to Harrow, she finds he's the one that's right behind her in possibly being able to finish first, becoming a lector. So obviously he is somebody who's also very impressive. So I think we should keep that in mind and see what happens from there with that. And I think that is everything for today's class. Hopefully, if there's anything that I missed, any questions you have, any comments, any concerns, anything at all, let me know down below. Or you're also welcome to reach out to me on Twitter, which is at fantasyfiction1. You can either find stuff that I've posted on there, or contact me on there. You can also contact me on Facebook, which is /fantasyfiction1. So you can either contact me on there or see all my latest uploads and posts there and such. You can get a hold of me on the website with my contact form, which is fantasyfictionfanatics.net. You can also see a bunch of other content that I have on there, so if you want more content from me that I don't have on this channel, you're welcome to head over to the blog and see if there are things that you enjoy there. Lots of different stuff I have on there, a lot of book recommendations, book reviews. I've got different topics about different things about writing, fantasy, books, reading, all that kind of stuff. Recommendations for fantasy films, things like that. All over there. Hopefully you can find something that you enjoy if you'd like more content from me, along with the trivia question as well over there. And you're also welcome to contact me through our Discord. We have several people over there chatting, having a good time, talking about all kinds of things, fantasy things, non-fantasy things, book discussions that we have, not book discussions, anything and everything on there. We're just having a good time talking and getting to know each other. So if you would like to talk with your fellow fantasy fanatics, go ahead and head over there, and hopefully you can enjoy talking with us too. And I am on there, so you can reach me there as well as seeing announcements, and any other uploads, things like that are posted on there as well. So, and that link will be down below if you are interested in joining. For the next Gideon class, go ahead and read chapters 16 through 20, with, for my version, will be pages 178 through 210. Again, I would love to have a conversation with you about it, about Gideon and everything happening right now, so please reach out to me. I would love, love, love to have a discussion with you. And other than that, I guess I will see you next time. Bye!